Good evening and welcome to Crossroads Career Network webinar on Thursday evening. We're happy to have you here tonight. Welcome. My name is Tom Jacobson, and on a volunteer basis, I lead one of the Crossroads groups out of Woodbury Lutheran Church here on the east side of the Twin Cities. Someday soon, we hope to have meetings in person. We're looking actually at possibly an August one at Grace Church, and hopefully later this fall here in Woodbury. So stay tuned for that on the website. It's all tentative and may not come to fruition, but look for it soon. Again, Crossroads is a great organization, and I've been lucky to be a part of it for a very short time. Maybe 5-6 years, formerly out of the Woodbury chapter. So Crossroads has been good to me, and I really enjoy being a part of the organization and volunteering here. We do a lot of great things that you'll find are mostly free. Check out our website. There's many things on there that you can find. You can get help, and I'm going to do a little show and tell about Crossroads at the end of the meeting, starting somewhere around 8:20. Give you a quick agenda. I'm doing this brief update introduction, and then we will have a video presentation, an inspirational video. And then our main speaker, 𝙔𝙤𝙪𝙧 will come on and give you how to jumpstart kick off your job search in a big way. So, and George is an expert in this field, and we're really excited to have him here tonight because he really can depart a lot of wisdom and how to really get it going. He's an author and everything, and I'll do another introduction of him later, so I don't want to do it all right now. Let me get started by, as you might know, Crossroads is a religious organization, and we have I have a Bible verse to share with you tonight, so I'm going to go ahead in the book of Psalm 31, chapter verse 24. Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord. You know, hope is a wonderful thing, and it can be great in job search because it is really important to be hopeful when you're looking for a job, because that hope, that energy, all of that comes through in how you go about your job search, and people see it, and they can really grasp that and really be a part of what you're trying to accomplish if they see that hope, that spirit inside you just really beaming. So really take hope and be strong, and take your strength from God, and really focus on what the message of the Lord is in this area. So hope is great it's a great opportunity for you to really be and get your job search kicked off in a great way. So really fill yourself with hope so you can go forward and find the passionate things that you are looking for. God gives us great wisdom in the scriptures, and we need to really take heart of that and really focus on what he has to say for us. Let me start with a prayer. Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight to share and to grow. Help us focus on the messages of the evening in the video and what George has to depart in his wisdom. Help us to really learn what it is that we need to be focused on in our job search, and really take that to heart and move it forward in a way that will help us each and every day. Guide us where your plans lead us. If we are in transition, help us through prayer to talk with you and really focus on what you want for us in our careers. Give us the strength and inspiration so we might go out and find the opportunities that we want. Help us to be energized and filled with hope and gratitude. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So at this time, we're going to play a video, which is a video from I Am Second, Is Winning Enough? And the featured speaker is Tony Dungy, and you will find his message very enlightening, I think, and how he focuses his life and how he really looks at things a little bit differently than you would expect a football coach to look at things, in my opinion. So that video should be on here relatively soon. And here it comes.
2005 season, we're the #1 seed. We've got a great team, a team really without any weaknesses. We've got home field advantage. Everyone's saying it's our year. We end up falling behind to the Steelers in our first round game. We march back. We've got a chance to tie the game up and go into overtime. And Mike Vanderjagt's our kicker, extremely accurate guy, never misses a big kick, and he misses. Pittsburgh goes on to win the Super Bowl. And now you kind of hear it from everybody, well, the Colts are never going to win one. They've had all these teams that are really good, but something's missing, and that window of opportunity is going to close up on them. I can remember thinking, man, as good a team as we had, if we don't win it now, we may never win it. And I'm going to have to be okay with that. I think you can glorify the Lord in every circumstance. How you respond to failure, how you respond to disappointment says a lot more than how you do in successes. God has taken some unexpected things in my life over and over, and really, I think, tried to find out if I was going to stay with Him or if I was ever going to get to the point where I say, this is too much. I'm going to go my own way. I started coaching when I was 25 years old. And probably by the time I'd been an assistant coach for 10, 11 years, the word was getting out, this guy might be a good head coach. I started to interview for head coaching jobs, but everyone was looking for that stereotypical coach, looking for the guy who was going to demand perfection from his players, who was going to show that emotion and everything that they expected to see in a head coach. And that wasn't me. How much does this mean to you? How much are you prepared to sacrifice to lead his team? And what's important to you in life? And you know what the man wants to hear, but it's not really what's in your heart. I'm going to give you a lot. I believe I'm going to deliver you a championship, but no, the team is not going to be the most important thing. When I was called to interview at Tampa, I told Lauren, we're not going to get this job. I don't know anybody there. I have no connections. And so when I got the job, I said, you know what, we want to win a Super Bowl, and I believe we will. I want to do it the right way. I want to do it so that our young men are people that the community is going to be proud of. I want to do it in such a way that we're doing the right things with our families, and it's going to be a win-win situation. I believe it can be done, and I believe it can be done here. I came down feeling like, hey, this is where God wants us. We're going to win. Everything's going to be great because this is God's plan. It's not my plan. That's, to me, one of the hardest things in life, when you have an idea of the way things are going to go, what you hope for, what you dream about, what you pray for, and it doesn't come through. That's when it's easy to get disappointed with God. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it pan out the way I thought it would? It was one of the biggest disappointments in my life, because I did feel like the Lord had brought me down to Tampa. And I had to realize that it worked out. It just didn't work out the way I had planned it. I didn't know at the time when I got fired what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to look for something in Tampa outside of football, or was I supposed to look for another job, another city? And Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, called me and he said, we're making a change at head coach with the Indianapolis Colts, and you're the guy that I want to be our coach. I believe in all the things that you believe in. We want to do things the right way. We want to win, but win with the right kind of people, and you're the guy to lead us. And that was a message that I really needed to hear at that point. My favorite passage in the Bible is where Christ says, "What would it profit a man to gain the whole world but forfeit his soul?" And with 31 years in the National Football League, I've seen that a lot. And so to me, that was the thing that I always wanted to tell my players. Don't put this game first. Don't make football everything in your life. How we relate to each other, how we live, what you have in your heart for eternity, how you're responding to the Lord. That's the most important thing. This game will take care of itself. Even though we, for 4 or 5 years had those bitter disappointments at the end of each year, I never gave up. It wasn't to the point where I said, hey, we can never win this thing, but I got to the point where if that is what God has in store, it'll be a bitter pill to swallow, but I'm going to be okay with that. We've been through a lot, and our slogan by that time was, "It's our time." Those disappointments were in the past, but now it's our time, and we got to seize the moment, and we did that. Amazing thing in the locker room. Super Bowls are so different. As soon as you win, the celebration starts. You have a ceremony out on the field. It maybe takes 40 minutes to get everybody back together. Many of our players were just waiting. They said, "Coach, we've got to finish this one like we have every other game. We've got to have the team prayer." And we asked that the reporters shut their cameras down and let us pray. And I was so proud of the guys for hanging in there and saying, this is what we want to do. We want to honor the Lord in this victory. And we did that. One photographer didn't honor our wishes. He took a picture of it, but that picture went all over the internet, went all over, and it was really a great tribute to what that team had in mind of putting the Lord first, even at the Super Bowl. Every decision I make in life, I'm going to make it through the lens of Jesus Christ. I'm going to put him out there first, and my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own desires are going to be second. It's that simple. And if we do that, Christ promised that he would come into our lives, he'd be our head coach, and he'd guide us to that victory, that ultimate victory. I'm Tony Dungy, and I am second.
Wow, that was a great message. I've watched it several times now, and I think I get something each time that I listen to it. But most importantly, they're putting the Lord first, and everything that you do can hopefully lead you down the path that's going to make a difference in your life, both positively from a career perspective, let's say, and from a life perspective. And let's hope from a life perspective, you get everything you want through Christ and through the Lord. So an excellent message. Also, Tony has several books, at least one that I've read, and I found the message in the book also very enlightening and very helpful in how to do the things that he does in your life. Great inspiration to us all. Even though he's just a football coach, he's definitely a great man. So with that, we're going to transition to George's talk. And I'd like to introduce George Murray. George is an accomplished author. He spent a great deal of time, 25 years in the Army, and whoops, he was an Army veteran, and then he followed by 25 years in global operations. He's an operations expert, and he's been instrumental in leading several companies, and he likes to bring companies from a certain stage to the next stage, and he's that good at what he does, and he's a very inspirational speaker, and I find what he has to say in his message very enlightening. So George is going to, and George's book is Hired, Cut Your Career Search in Half, and he has a unique perspective on how to make that happen. I'm looking forward to having George come on and present his message. So George, take it away. And if you want, George, if you want to have people ask questions, or you want me to read them, or Harry, just let us know, and we'll in your introduction, and we'll take care of that. Thank you.
Sure. No, I thank you. I want to thank you, Tom, and I also want to thank Harry for bringing me back. Always love talking to you guys and helping out those who are, kind of at a crossroads. That no pun intended. But how do you follow up with, Tony Dungy? I mean, that's like almost impossible, right? But yeah, George Murray, global operations leader. The last 5 or 6 years, I've been really passionate about helping professionals and business owners, kind of find out where they're at in life and business, and more importantly, the roadmap to get them where they want to be. Wrote the book Hired, Cut Your Career Search Time in Half. As a matter of fact, it's been out over 2 years, and just last month, or maybe 2 months ago, it finally got bestseller on Amazon, and it's an award-winning book as well. And then my second book, Ignite, Engage, Retain, is more for business leaders and owners. And then I'm working on my third book, which is The Fearless Path, the finding your intestinal fortitude to achieve resilience and triumph. So always working on something. So let me share my screen and we'll get off. And as you had asked, Tom, I always say this presentation is probably 40-45 minutes, so it should give enough time. If somebody has a question during the presentation, bring it up at that time, because people tend to kind of forget what they asked, and they said, oh, I wish I had asked that at the time. So let me see.
So just to reiterate on for the audience, you just use the chat session if you have a question, and then I'll interrupt George and have him read it, or I'll read it to him, whichever he prefers.
So let me know when you can see the screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So yeah, I put this, and it's been modified a couple of times in the last 5 years, but really, what I find in a lot of people, including myself in my first job transition, is where do I start, right? Or if I've been maybe a little long in job transition, struggling, what are the best practices to kind of get me revived and pointed in the right direction? And we hope that we can answer all those questions during this presentation. See, why is this not working here? So we're going to talk about, where you're at in your journey right now. And then more importantly, how do you get to where you want to be? Things that are important in this whole process versus what you've kind of heard is important. Creating your value proposition. And this is one of the things I've learned in the last 5 years. A lot of people talk about this elevator pitch, and I say it's so 2016 because that was when I was first in job transition. We live in an attention deficit society, so I need to understand what value you bring to my organization or a potential organization I may know that has your need for skills. Talk about a network plan and developing and outlining that, and then what's your scheduled day and then personal board advisors, which I think is very important. If you haven't realized now, You are the CEO of You Incorporated. So like a CEO, you should have a personal board of advisors that gives you direction, accountability, and also is able to listen when things aren't going so well. And then, creating a wow factor through the entire interview process, not just at the end, but also when we start just the phone screen. So this is one of the things I developed over the course of the first couple of years. And I realized that there's a lot of out there, like the fear of public speaking, the 3 stages. And I asked myself, there's got to be at least 3 stages in job transition. At least for me, there was. There's that loss stage, whether A, it just happened to me last Friday, or I'm struggling and I'm kind of back in this kind of like, what do I do scenario? Who do I tell? When do I tell them? All this why me? And I think it's very important for people to understand, take some time, not too much, but really kind of process it so that you don't make the same mistake twice and find yourself out a couple of years in the new role that you're going to get, which is going to be better, because everybody I've helped coach and mentor, even though it's taken a little bit of time, has always moved on to better pastures. Then, what does it take to get to the next step is the transformational stage. It's really the prep work. How do I build all this? If I am an introvert, how do I actually start networking, right? How do I wade myself into the shallow end versus being kind of picked up and thrown by our parents, at least when I was growing up to learn how to swim, thrown in the deep end. A lot of introverts won't even get beyond the fence to let you get that happen to them, and kind of knowing your ask. One of the main things I see in networking for people who haven't been doing it or been not in job transition for the last 10, 15 years is the competitive landscape of job transition changes on an average of 18 to 24 months. Certain things happen and change. I mean, ChatGPT, and we'll talk about that briefly, has come to light in the last couple of months, and it's been a very good tool for us people in job transition. And then finally getting to that last stage of that confidence stage. What does it take to be there? More importantly, what does it take to stay there? And then realizing in this whole process, you're going to slide. You can slide all the way back to the loss stage. I'll give you an example. And I don't understand why HR people still do this, but they'll give you the thanks, but no thanks letter on a Friday. And I've actually sat with somebody who had thought at least 2 out of the 4 job interviews that she was going to get was going to receive, an offer, that you're the person until you're not the person. And so on Friday, all 4 jobs came in. Thanks for your time and your effort, but we decided to go in a different direction. Well, that just kills you, right? Kills your momentum. You may have slowed down in your networking. It's going to take you a couple of weeks to get back up to the speed, at least the speed I was doing, in order to get to where you want to be. So things that are important, I think, and I'll tell people that, at the end, I'll give an option to give a discount if you want to grab my book from the publisher itself. It's in town. So we're all here in Minneapolis, so it shouldn't take you more than a couple of days to get the book. I've gotten probably over 150 5-star reviews on Amazon. So it's at least speaking to somebody. But first and foremost is energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude. And I think Tom alluded to this earlier, control the things you can. And it's very difficult because you're like, ask yourself, when do you need to get hired? Tomorrow. Well, what's a realistic that you're going to get hired? Probably not, right? So let's put a realistic time on it so that it also forces you to maybe challenge yourself and do things that you might not do. Like in my first job transition, I cold called a bunch of CEOs, not thinking it was going to happen. And there was an 80% return rate, right? Again, it's all about message and not rambling on, taste of the cake and not the ingredients, those types of things. Realize that if you haven't been in job transition or it's been a while since you've been, this is going to be the toughest job that you have. And so you've got to develop some processes that metrics yourself, and more importantly, what do you do when those aren't going in the right direction? We'll need to try and everything to see what works. So in my book, there's probably over 24, 25 examples of what I tried. And when I actually got it all done, I realized that these 4 or 5 things work for me. Well, those 4 or 5 things might not work for you. So I wanted to make sure that there was enough tools in there, because they gave a variety so that somebody would come along and say, well, the 4 or 5 that worked for you definitely didn't work for me, but these 4 did, right? And then, of course, making sure your LinkedIn profile rhythm, the right algorithms, everything, because LinkedIn now is changing almost on an every 7-day period. So if you haven't updated your LinkedIn profile in some time, you're probably going to be forced down to the bottom of the list when people are looking and searching for your skill set and your background and your title. And then the second thing that I think is most important out of the whole book is your structured day. You left a structured life. You got at a certain time, you did certain things, you went to the office, you had KPIs, you had meetings, all that's wiped out. And this is one of the things that people fail to do in their first couple of months, is establish a rhythm in a day. So what do I need to do hourly, weekly? And we'll talk a little bit about this, hourly, weekly, and monthly, that's going to move the needle in the right direction, and evaluating that on a kind of a cadence basis, whether it's every 3 or 4 Saturdays, to say, hey, what's working and what's not. And then what I might try, right? For example, in my first job transition, very few people knew me. So what I did for 10 weeks was I wrote hand notes to people who were getting promoted. And you can go through the Star Tribune every Tuesday in the business section. They call it the movers and the shakers. And you can find out all those people. And you can find out, by searching, where their company is. And if it's like a 3M and you don't know, you can always send it to corporate. It will finally get to them, right? It may take a couple of days, but the point is that few lines of congratulating them, telling them how much you admire their tenacity to land the role and everything else. But then you kind of do the value proposition. We'll talk a little bit about that. But share that and then say, when time permits, I'd really love to get your perspective of what was successful in your job search, right? Because again, you can't get enough input, and you've got to be able to try all things in order to figure out what works for you. And then, spending only an hour a day submitting resumes. And this is one of the things I tell people, and I know a lot of resume writers hate me, but to me, if you're doing the right thing, the resume is the last thing that gives you, right? To me, the national average to secure a job through submission of resume is less than 1%. The national average of networking to secure a job is 84%. So where do you think you should be spending your time? Networking. And then, of course, I got to move a little thing here so I can read the last part, but then finally make sure that you do get a good resume, and we'll talk about how ChatGPT can help you do that. First and foremost, here's some basics of LinkedIn. There's much better people out there, like Ann Pryor is probably the best. I actually have Ann look at my LinkedIn profile probably every 12 to 18 months just to make sure it's current and it's sending the right message. But a couple of things that are important. A, make sure you have a picture and you're the only one in it, right? It's clear. You don't have to go out and get a $400 photo shoot or whatever. But if you have a Samsung greater than 10 or an iPhone greater than 10, you should be able to turn around and get a good picture, lean forward, kind of get your chin up so you don't kind of have, like myself, that little fat that sits there. But great lighting, you can have a decent picture and you put it on there. The second thing that's most important is the banner behind you. You've got that second picture that most people haven't filled in. And I always tell people, you want to make sure it speaks to your talents and your skills. So if you're an engineer, you might want to go on Google Images, make sure it's a 1200 by 800 pixel or greater, right? and just put the picture on there. Again, it's another thing to draw the people that are searching for your talents into your profile as opposed to pushing you out. And then also make sure you go into your settings and make sure that your settings, the second and third string connections, are able to see your picture and your background. Many people forget to go into their settings and set those accordingly, so that if you're checking out a recruiter and you may be feeling a little awkward to reach out, but they would have maybe reached out to you because they're maybe looking for an engineer in this example. They don't know, they can't see your picture, they can't see your background, so they're unlikely to turn around and reach out to you. And then, of course, it just kind of flows down from there, making sure that I always tell people the About Me section should start off. The first three lines, I believe, are the most prominent because they're the ones that people can see on the phone as well as the computer. And then it always says see more. So you want to make sure that those are impactful sentences. Like, I'm a chief operating officer where I drove a business, growth of more than 43% in 18 months. Wow. Then they hit say more, and they kind of look down the history. I always tell people you want to put something in there that's unique and different about you too, right? So it's something that's not on your resume. It's something that's not on your LinkedIn profile anywhere else, but it may be something relevant that, you can tie to your skill set and your abilities. Maybe you're a great listener, right? Those types of things. And again, if you're in a leadership position, that's one important message, because we live in a society where we listen to respond. So if you have a true gift in listening, you're above the rest, or most. ChatGPT came along, I believe, in November of last year. There's a lot of hymns and haws, and it's going to eliminate all jobs or whatever. But I think at this point, still freshly new. It's an opportunity for job seekers that might be struggling to, for finances and everything else, to just go online, create an account, and start working on it, right? You can take a job description and you can ask GPT, go say, please compare the job description, cut and paste the job description before you hit return. Say, also consider my existing resume and please rewrite a new resume based on the job description. And within 3 minutes, it'll rewrite your resume. Then you don't have to take 3 or 4 days. Then all you need to maybe take is maybe 40 minutes to make sure the wording is correct, the sentence structure is correct. It doesn't feel like an automated system. You still need to do that. But again, it saves you time, and it also compares the current job that you're looking to submit for and get you closer to kind of like the skill sets that they're looking for. Because right now, recruiters are looking for somebody that meets at least 11 of the 10 requirements of the job description. So the other thing is, you can help it to say, look for jobs for me. Here's my resume. Please take into consideration and identify the top 10 companies in Minneapolis that I should be researching and looking out for that might be hiring. Boom, you'll get a list and then you're off. It also can help you prepare for interviews. You can turn around and copy and paste the job description and say, based on the job description, copy and paste, please identify 15 questions that may be asked in this interview. And then also you can say, please create 5 to 7 questions to ask the interviewer. So you sound pretty smart. And all these happen within a couple of minutes. They can create this stuff for you. And it also can help you do company research. When you start to get in the face-to-face conversations, you can have a little bit more level, especially if they're publicly traded companies, a little bit more level of what their capabilities are and how your resume and your skill set fits nicely into their company culture and the needs for the job that they're looking for. Any questions on using ChatGPT? I do know that Harry says he's going to have an expert come in a couple weeks, so looking forward to that. I might have to sit in on that.
No questions so far.
All right. So value proposition versus the elevator pitch. So like most, I joined a couple of job transition groups. And as people went around a room and introduced themselves, there's one of two things. They were doing the dreaded elevator pitch, starting off like I would call Charlie Brown's teacher. I'm a chief operating officer with 25 years experience, an MBA, wonk, 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 sound like everybody else. So luckily, I was, I think, the 29th of 34 people that were going around the room. And I realized that the people who were executives in operation were basically singing the same tune. So I realized, okay, I've got to find something unique in my background that can tie it in a way that gives value and identifies me as being unique than any other person that was in that room. And so it took me a bit, and I'm glad that I was 29th of the 34 people. If it was the third person, I would probably be doomed, giving the dreaded elevator pitch. But I basically said, I'm a rappel master. Much like my military career, I drop into difficult situations. I develop a collaborative strategy and execute the plan. My team always exceeds the bar. Do you know anybody that's looking for a rappel master? And that's how I got my last two jobs. That's how I introduced myself when I spoke with the CEOs of the companies, right? So I tell people that, you know, it's about what you can do for them, and you tie something unique to you, right? So it's only you. I've developed a lot for a lot of folks. And I'd say one of the best ones I did, because I never done anybody, worked with anybody in the medical field until 2 years ago. And the lady was a nurse practitioner. And she goes, we worked on it for about 2 hours. Now, the thing is, don't feel frustrated. This should be only 30 seconds, right? You want them to lean in and ask for more. But it could take you up to about 2 hours. My first one did, right? And so the thing is, make sure that it's clear and concise. It comes from you. It's got the energy, enthusiasm, and you know it. It's not like you're reading it from a card, which most people do when they're doing those elevator pitches, right? It's also making sure that it's, 2 or 3 lines, because no one wants to listen to the elevator pitch, because even though they say it's a minute, people tend to go 2-3 minutes and we're all sleeping. What else here? Incorporate something. So if you're networking with somebody, and my process was the night before, I had a lot of these black books are stacked up over here. There's about 80 of them right now. And it's helped me write my first book. Is that my process was a page per person, and I would go into a LinkedIn profile. I'd find their name, write it. Then I would look at how many common connections we had and find out maybe 2 or 3 that I really knew well. And that would be my kind of icebreaker discussion. Well, how do you know Harry? Right? Oh, well, I've known Harry for 4 years, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of gets the discussion. You find a common ground. And then what you're trying to do is, I tell people, you're trying to build a relationship, but you're also trying to build cheerleaders in the workforce. So spend 98.5% of your time or more networking with people who are working, because they're hearing about job opportunities all the time. And then it's also a taste of the cake. It's not the recipe. You want them to lean in. So an example here was a cold call I gave Doug Baker of Ecolabs. At the time, he retired now. He's just on the board. But he was the CEO of Ecolabs. I think that year, this was 2016, he pulled in about 37 million in comp, running a $1 billion company. My message was, Doug, this is George Murray, recently transitioning executive, where I took a company from 120 to 180 million in 18 months. Looking to network with a large to medium-sized business community, would love your advice. Click. I think it was like 24 seconds. And he called me back in 2 days. I was floored. And since then, He's called to check up on me. It's just developed a relationship over a period of time. So again, you want them to ask for more. You don't want to tell them everything. You don't want to lead off with a networking meeting with a resume, because then there's really nothing to talk about. I know everything. Then we move to the network plan. This is kind of, okay, well, how am I going to structure my day? How do I prepare for my networking? And to me, I tell people is do the homework on the person the night before. Make sure you find as much commonality as you can. Like I said, identify the common connections, maybe find out that they worked at a certain company that was either a supplier or customer to you, or maybe they graduated from a college that your kids graduated from, right? You're just finding common ground, so it makes it less uncomfortable and you're developing a connection, right? A true connection. Then I always tell people, make sure that you show up to impress. And my example was in my first couple of months in my first job transition, I didn't know better. And I took Fridays a little too casual, showing up in jeans and a polo. And you can imagine how people would view me. They're like, well, this guy's really not taking this process seriously if he's going to show up like he's going to go off to the mall or whatever, right? The other thing too is if you're doing videos, make sure your background is in aesthetics are inviting but not a distraction. So I'll give you a couple examples that I've talked to people about. Had a finance guy I was working with, and he had files and all the paper was dumped over and falling over. What does that tell you? That finance guy is not organized, not going to get an interview, right? One guy, I swear, he had the same curtains my grandmother had 40 years ago, right? And I had to tell him, like, either find a different place in the house or you have to change those curtains. It's all perception. We live in a society now of perception. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's that person's perception, and that person's perception is real. And then, of course, the conversation should be a 70-30. Let them speak 70% of the time. The 30% of the time should be your value proposition, how you're going to introduce yourself, and the second is your ask. I can tell you most people fail at that, and that's why they leave either with not good connections or weak connections, right? So you've got to be very specific in your ask, but get to know them. Take notes, right? Because what you're going to want to do is in 24 hours or less, you want to thank them for the time, because the most important, valuable thing, even more than gold and money, is time, because we only get a certain amount of it. So again, follow up and say, hey, you know what? This resonated with me when you talked about your son, this, right? That really tells them that you paid attention and you listened to them. And people feel important when they're listened to. And it's simple things that can separate you from the rest. And then track your progress, have some kind of Excel spreadsheet. I got a couple of templates that I use to track recruiting discussions, interviews, networks, and everything else. As I said, this is a tough job. It's a big job. But it's also a rewarding job. I have met some of the greatest people I would have never met in job transition. Like Harry, great guy, energetic, very passionate about helping people, very family oriented. And so those connections go far beyond just that one connection. Then we talk about know your ask. How can I help, right? These are simple things that can set you apart, because so very few people ask these. It's like, well, this is my time. Yeah, we get it, but you know what? You can still be valuable. And the thing I think is the longer that you go in transition, the more you start to question your abilities, right? Not based upon your site. It's just the feedback you're getting. You get the thanks but no thanks letter. You get this, well, there's ageism. Well, there is. I tell people there is, right? Don't feed into it. We've been told all our lives to act our age. This is a time not to act your age. And don't act like you're going to retire in the next year, because you're definitely not going to get hired, right? You got to have energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude, because no one wants to speak to an Eeyore, especially when they're looking for a job. You know the people I'm talking about, right? The oh, woe is me. I've been out, my first transition, 13 months, still struggling to find anything. But you have a primary and a backup. And the great Tony Rotundi, I call him the godfather of networking because he's been doing it for over 40 years. And I think that it's like a rite of passage. No one gets hired until they go see Tony Rotundi. It's just kind of a thing. But Tony's a great guy. He gives a lot of, I would say, valuable information that you won't get anywhere else. I mean, and his comment to me was, George, don't be too vague, but don't be too concise. And I'm like, well, what's that mean, Tony? And he goes, what's your favorite baseball team? And I told him, and he goes, so let's say your skill is left field and you're so passionate, you're talking about that, but you didn't realize that they had an opening for right field, and the left field, they hired a guy just 2 months ago on a multi-million-dollar contract, but you're so focused on that, you waste time. So for me, when people ask me, what are you looking for? I always said primarily chief operating officer, a medium-sized company in technology or manufacturing. And I outlined what that medium-sized, because medium-sized to me is different from other people. And 5% of the time, you might hear of something, right? Because again, more than 70% of jobs are never posted. And if they are, they already have candidates lined up. So you want to make sure that you have the primary. And then the backup for me was, I want to still network with people that might be a hiring influence or a hiring manager influence or a hiring manager themselves. So I would always say, I'm also looking to network with CEOs, board members, and private equity firms. If you're that mechanical engineer that's looking for a mechanical engineering job, you're looking to network with directors of engineering, senior manufacturing engineering managers, those types of things. That's your ask. And then the last thing at the end of it, how can I help you? This can help you as well as them, because they know the struggles, I would assume, right? Most of us have always, all of us have been in one transition, right? Some worse than others. And we know how it feels. So if you can offer help, like, hey, I might not know somebody now, but I've got a CFO that's looking for an account. Well, I know people. I'll introduce you. That's kind of how it is, right? Give introductions. And then it's almost like, you know what? I owe George something because he found me a great candidate and saved me a bunch of money in recruiting fees, right? And it also helps your ego, because again, the longer you're in transition, you've got to find ways that are going to lift you up. And that's one way to lift you up, is when you're helping other people. Day in the life. Oh, this is my day in the life back in 2016. A lot. So you've got to structure. What's your day going to look like? So first and foremost, I looked at myself in the mirror after 3 months of frustration. I said, okay, I said I was going to eat better, sleep better, and I was going to start a workout program. I was at that time the heaviest I had been ever. And I just started off, of course, not running because I would have had a heart attack, but I just started walking. And then in a couple of months, walking became awkwardly jogging. And then before you know it, I was running 6 times a week. And in 7 months, I dropped 42 pounds. And guess what? I slept better too. And, you feel better. You got more confidence. Hey, I look pretty good. And you speak more confidently, right? Because it's that reassurance. But after you've gotten that morning, whatever you do, stretching, yoga, whatever, you got to find ways to kind of, what I always call the old computers where you had to defrag, right? Well, to me, for me, somebody who's an A-type that can't sit still, that was pretty difficult for me. But I had somebody talk me into it, meditation. And I know now when I don't do it for a while, I know that's the reason. I got to get all that crap, that bad stuff out of my head. And then I got to find a way to really reprogram it, whether it's listening to Gary V, Tony Robbins, Jacko for me, who written great books as well, military guy as well. They just help motivate me in the day. And then most of my day was focused on networking. So here's what I have found. The average person networking after a couple of months getting into the rhythm is averaging 10 to 12 people a week. So if you're doing more than that, you're doing more than the competition. I do frighten people when I tell people my second job transition, I was averaging 7 people a day for more than 6 months. 7 people. My goal was 10. I only got to 9 3 times. It's very exhausting, especially when you were at one time an introvert. But I knew that was going to make me successful. Getting in front as many people, sharing my story, sharing my skill set, and then following up with them. And then certain things on, weekly, evaluating, your progress every 3 weeks, stop the things that aren't working for you. Like if a cold calling is not working for you, don't spend the time, don't do it. Try something else, brainstorm. For me, every third Saturday, my calendar was literally more packed in job transition than it's ever been working anywhere. Reminders, notifications, meetings, etc., all reminding me, George. And so Saturday from 7:35 to 8:15, my plan was to review my last couple of weeks, evaluate what's still working, continue to do that, stop the things that aren't working, and then brainstorm for the last 15 minutes. What are some of the other things I might want to try? And I did the cold calling based on a dare from Greg Rye. Great networker. Now he's kind of a snowbird. He lives half here and half here down in Florida, but one of the greatest guys. And actually, he was the second guy I traditionally ever networked with. And I'm glad that I did. We've been very, very good friends since then. And then also, we talk about, monthly. Every 6 weeks, you should send an update individually to all the people that you network to keep top of mind. Say a couple of lines. No one wants to read a book, right? A couple of lines of what you've been up to, what you've been doing, and then a couple of lines of what you're still looking for. So people because it's not that people intend to, not remember you, but life goes on, right? And so their take is, well, I haven't heard from George in 4 to 6 weeks. He's must found an opportunity. But if you kind of get that little introduction every 4 to 6 weeks, they're out there for you. It's the cheerleaders in the workforce. Keep them up to date. And then creating the personal board advisors. We'll talk about that a little later. Personal board advisor. So this was mine. And all these people I met in job transition. So everybody who hasn't been sleeping under a rock for the last 10 years knows Ann Pryor. And I was fortunate enough to meet Ann way back in 2016 when she was coming out of corporate America and developing these 5 streams of income. And one was being a LinkedIn expert. I think she's actually the top 10 in the globe now, if I'm not mistaken. The second one was just a friend, reminded me of my sister that passed away when I was 6 years old. Told it like it is. Told me a couple of times, George, put your big point pants on. You need to stop crying, right? You need to move forward. You need people like that. You need people that hold you accountable, kick you in the pants. Alan McClellan, if you do get the book Unhired, he's the first person that writes a recommendation in the book. You open up the cover, he's there. And he actually talks about the first meeting that we had, which I thought was really special. And he runs $1 billion company, and he and I are very, very good and very close friends. The other one is Jenny Jeffords. She's my energy coach. So when I get that thanks but no thanks letter, I know I can call her, and in 5 minutes, my whole mood and action item can turn around. And you need people like that, especially when you get the thanks but no thanks letters on the Fridays. And then, of course, Ryan Carlson made sure that I didn't go poor in this whole process. Came close, but yeah. Then wow factor. So What I mean by wow is the difference between a stack of resumes that people sift through in order to get you to go to a phone screen. You have this pile over here. What you don't realize is that there's this imaginary file that you need to fill. And the people that secure jobs are the ones that fill that pile as they go through the job transition, or excuse me, the interview process. And so here's an example. I tell people, when you do a phone screen, dress up. I remember going in the military, dressing up in my dress blues and my dress greens. I always stood an inch taller and I always talked with more confidence. And it comes across like that, right? As opposed to maybe sitting on the couch eating bonbons, right? It definitely comes across and it makes an impression. Then when you get in and you start to interview, you follow up with those. You leave them examples, right? So that they can fill that pile. And if you're only one of 4 people that's filling that pile, they go back and look at resumes and they overlook at this pile and they're like, whoa, George left us this in the first interview, left us this in the second interview, and left us this in the final interview, which takes me to the final interview. I've heard a lot of people say, I get all the way to the final interview and I don't get the offer. And I ask them, do you do a 90-day plan? Most companies don't do well at onboarding, right? So it makes it powerful that you take all the discussions that you've heard and kind of outline and draft a 90-day plan that says, based on the conversations I had, I've already thought about working for the company, and here's my approach. Now, this is not solidified, and I would definitely sit down with the manager once I'm hired to really critique this, but you've taken 98% of their work out, because for me, it's always been a 2% change to my original plan. And it's all the difference in the world, and people land jobs. So the takeaway is, in the whole book process and what you heard tonight, energy, enthusiasm, positive attitude, check it regularly. And if you don't have it high, you've got to find a way. What do I need to do differently? Do I need to change out my workout program? Do I need to change eating process? Do I need to, get more sleep? That's one of the things. We are a sleep deprived nation. So if you get 6 to 7 hours of sleep, you're probably beating more than 50% of the workforce. And it's always that little edge, and all these little things can give you those little edges amongst the competition. And then making sure that your day in the life, your plan is set in place, and evaluating it, tweaking it. My day in the life has changed considerably through the few job transitions I had. And here's the example. Pre-COVID, a professional or an executive was taking anywhere from 7 to 13 months to find another opportunity. Post-pandemic, people, just up until a couple of months ago, before all these tech layoffs, it was taking people probably about 4 to 5 months, which was probably the best of all time, right? Pretty much anybody who wanted a job had a job. And now recently, with the uptick in layoffs, et cetera, it's still probably between 5 and 7 months. Not horrible, but it's still, in order for you to be more successful, is following a process and evaluating it and making tweaks accordingly. And then the third thing is a personal board of advisors. Get one, and as you're the CEO of You Incorporated, and things aren't working out for some of those, hire and fire accordingly. Say, listen, George, you're just not cutting it for me. I need to go on and find somebody else that's going to give me a kick in the pants or something else that I'm just not getting. Right? Additional resources. These are some of the things that I found out there with, the kind of controversy for remote jobs, et cetera. But these are some of the websites I found to be helpful for people that are maybe looking for a remote job, posting resumes on there. And then how you can help me. If you do buy my book, no pressure, but I always love reviews. I really take them passionately, and it's been overwhelming. I wrote the book with the intent to make 5 people happy and get their job faster, and I've done a lot more than that. So it's always great to read those, and I read all the reviews. And then if this process has helped you and you know somebody else that's struggling, I do have every 2 weeks on a Saturday, the same process. It's free, no charge. I do it at Saturday from 10 to 10:45, in and out. And then if we're not connected, let's get connected, how I can help you. If there's articles out there that I post that are relevant, I'd really appreciate it. A comment or a share. And then if you want to buy the book, it's out there on Audible, Kindle. It's also available on Amazon, but through Crossroads, you can get a 15% discount if you go to Kirk House Publishing with that address. And in the, when you sign out at the sign out before you pay, and you put that code in there, you'll get a 15% off. And I think it comes close to covering the shipping and handling. Questions? That's pretty fast.
George, you did do a great job of running through that very quickly, and you had a good pace. So we are waiting for questions. So the audience, if you have questions, type them in, and we'll ask them of George.
And if you don't want to, just reach out to me and ask questions later. I'm more than willing to help.
Just so everyone knows, George's video will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if you missed something and you want to go over it again, check that out. So, and I'll talk about that later in the on the Crossroads resource presentation. So, questions? So George, I was really one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is the more of a board of directors is what I call it, but you call it a board of advisors, and yours were all very formed with the idea of helping you in your job search. Some people also, one thing that people have a lot of trouble with is making sure that checking out their resume or checking out their written material. Sometimes having someone to proofread those things can be of great value. So maybe that friend can double as that kind of person for you.
Absolutely. You give your resume to those people and they can read, and they can also help you do a mock interview.
Sure.
If you haven't done interviewing in the last few years, it might help you.
Certainly. Okay, we got a question. What do you suggest for someone who has been out of the workforce for a few years to care for family and is now looking to transition back to work?
Yeah, I think the first foremost is being upfront. I think especially given the last 3 years with all the things that's happened in people's lives, even employers are a little bit more passionate about the risk of people who've taken in the last couple of years. So being just upfront and saying, hey, I thought this was a priority. It's something that was calling me, and right now I'm back ready at it. And I always tell people, sometimes you may have to take a step down in order to take a step in so that you can later take a step up. So if you were a director of engineering, I always say engineering, I don't know why, or marketing, but both of which I respect highly. But I tell them, maybe you want to take an engineering manager job, go in there, show them what you're made out of, and in a year you get promoted. And that might be an easier road to get in.
Certainly. Good. Another question that's out there, and this one's very common. If you have very few LinkedIn connections, how do you start networking?
First and foremost, and this is what I tell introverts, find out your family members, your church people that you go to, and just reach out to them and just say, I'd like to really talk to you, get some of your insight. And once you, prior to, do the homework, right? Find out who they're connected to and just say, hey, after our conversation, would you be willing to introduce me to these 3 people I know that you're connected to? And then also say, I'm willing to send you a brief way to introduce, because this is one of the other things is that people get busy, they go back to work, and then Friday comes and they're like, oh, I have to introduce George. What's his background again? And it gets defeated, right? And that's what prevents. But if you take the homework away from them and say, hey, listen, I really enjoyed our conversation. Here's 3 or 4 lines of, if you can introduce me to these folks, bing, 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 right? And you've done the homework, they feel empowered because now they've done their civic duty, right? They've helped people, right? And you just taken the homework away from
That's a perfect way to approach it too. And then it leaves them no excuses either.
them. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's see. Still waiting for more questions at this point, but something else you talked about was that day, structuring your day and, starting with exercise and things of that nature. You're really, creating that energy in your day by starting with exercise really gives you the ability and the energy to overcome some of the challenges you might have you might hit right away in the day too. So that's, I was really, for me, that was one of the more important things you were talking about, is just structuring the day.
Here's the thing. The average person across the globe walks less than 3 miles. That's 5,700 feet. So if you get up and just walk 3 miles in the morning, you've already beaten more than, 90% of the people out in the workforce, right?
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to be strenuous. You don't have to go from being a couch potato like I was to running a marathon, but it's going to take some time, and don't push yourself, right? But do what the body tells you you're capable of doing and slow down when it tells you. Don't try to push it and say, oh, I'm going to push through pain. Oh, that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah. So also one of the things that when you were talking about your asks, your first and your secondary, your primary and your secondary, can you give another couple of examples of what a primary ask is like in your networking meetings?
Yeah, I always tell people, whatever your position is, right? You might want to lead off with, hey, for example, director of engineering. I'm looking for a director of engineering job in these particular industries, right? Or these particular companies, 3 or 4, right? And if you've done your homework on the night before, you realize that these people are maybe connected to some of those people in that company, right? And it's always best to leverage those, if it's a larger company, they may have employee, programs that give them an incentive to turn around and refer good people, right? So they win, you win, right? So it's always just trying to find that way. But I always tell people is try to make sure that you're either networking and talking to potential influencers to hiring managers or hiring managers themselves, or at least networking with potential influencers or hiring managers. One of the things I did was I spent the first couple of months spending too much time in job transition groups, and I'm not taking anything away from when I learned them, but the fact was, for me, as an A-type person, it kind of brought me down. And so I had to at least cut back on a few, and I cut back on the right few. Crossroads was one that I kept. The other one was, it's no longer in functional, but it was a manufacturer alliance, Minnesota Manufacturers Alliance. It was ran by Shane Smith. And I always thought they had really great speakers, really good content.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of the old networking groups have since disbanded. It's only a strong few that are left.
Well, because of the fact that it got to a point where everybody wanted a job, had a job. So here's my example: post-pandemic, when I left on to after we restructured. From the time that I left, I didn't do any network until the time that I left, April 16th. 34 days later, I networked with 112 true people that were going to move the needle for me, and I got 3 offers. 3 offers in 34 days post-pandemic. So it can happen. Right. You just gotta hustle.
Well, your example and the way you approach everything is about hustle and outdoing the norm. And I think that really shines through in what you've written in your book and your presentation and everything you do. I think you're a shining example of someone that's exceeding the bar at all costs. So, or at all
Well,
times.
I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Yes. So we're not getting any additional questions, and I hate to prolong you here
Nope.
by asking my little side question. So if there's anything you would like to say in closing, and then we'll transition to the next phase of the meeting.
No, I highly suggest people reaching out. The power of networking, 84% land jobs through networking. So get out there, do it. If you're struggling to figure out how do I start, let's connect.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. And the one question just popped in, and I'll read it to you. And how can you push past introversion with networking? Introversion.
Yeah. So the person's an introvert.
Introvert. Yes.
And it's difficult to talk to strangers, right?
Got
So
it.
I always tell people it's back to that. Start networking with people so you feel comfortable, right? And get them to introduce you to people that are influenced to hiring managers. So you already have a common connection that you can talk about. So you're less fearful of networking because you've got something to talk about. How do you know Harry? Oh yeah, Harry and I go back 5 years. And he's helped me tremendously through my job transitions and blah, blah, blah. And then you start to really kind of develop that process. Networking is an ongoing skill to learn. It's not some point you put a stake in the ground and say, I've learned everything, because I have not.
Very good. Well, appreciate that, George. Thank you. And thank you for
you
being
guys
here
both
tonight. And good luck in with your third book. And hopefully everything goes your way. And we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers here at Crossroads. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to do next is I'm going to do a quick presentation on, I'm going to share my slides here on the Crossroads Network and what we offer on a day-to-day basis there, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. So let's see, are they sharing? Here they come. Okay, now let's see. There we go. So those of you who are new to us tonight here at Crossroads and have signed up for your first seminar, you'll be getting this free gift, and it will be on its way very soon. And it's the devotions for the unemployed and those who love them. How long, oh Lord, how long, by Dale Frankenkamp. It's a really good book, and it has a lot of valuable information in it about, devotions and those types of things. So I highly recommend you open that book and start at it. It will help you immensely. So that's our gift here for being a part of Crossroads and attending one of our seminars. I hope you enjoy it, and I think you'll love the content. MNCrossroads.com is where everything starts with Crossroads and the Crossroads Network here, MN Crossroads Network. If you haven't been, which I highly doubt if you've already signed up for this seminar, but if you haven't explored it to the extent that you've learned a lot from the website, I highly recommend that. There's job boards out there, there's assessments, there's information, there's how to sign up for the 8-week course, there's how to get help, and I'm going to talk about all those things, but explore mncrossroads.com. It is a resource in and of itself. You'll find everything there that to help you in job search, and I'm going to illuminate some of those things as we go through, but please check us out and give us feedback if you have any. Twin Cities Crossroads groups. When we meet in person, which we haven't done since the pandemic, but we're going to do hopefully very soon, we have 3 sites. Grace Church is the originator, MN Crossroads Career Network in Eden Prairie at Grace Church. We also have a site in Woodbury at Woodbury Lutheran Church, is the one that I'm a part of. And then MN Crossroads and Arden Hills at North Heights Lutheran Church. all great groups, all great opportunity to network and meet and have partake in the seminars that we have, hopefully on site in the near future. So pay attention to the website and you'll get more details about it, and we'll make announcements as they come available on our seminars. Weekly opportunities with Crossroads, networking with grace. One of the things that George talked about is getting in with networking groups, and this is a different kind of group in that this isn't really just the job transition. This is about networking the whole meeting, and it's run by the two Wes's, Wes Roper and Wes Tang, and it's online right now, and it meets every Thursday morning, so you can sign up for it on the website. And one of the things you'll find there is that the two leaders really help you with the structure of networking, help you learn how to and what to do regarding networking, can help you in many ways regarding networking. And it is the best networking group in the Twin Cities, bar none, at least in my opinion, my humble opinion, let's make it. So check out Networking with Grace and start your networking adventure soon. For those of you who in tonight's audience who have not networked or have networked very little, this can be a great springboard to your networking success. So check it out. One-on-one coachings. You can sign up online anytime. You can sign up. It's available anytime to sign up. The coaching can be anything that you need in job search. It can be from interviewing, resumes, select help with, let's say your elevator pitch, your how to ask, or what your value proposition is. All those things you can get coaching on here at Crossroads by signing up on the website for that coaching. So check it out. It's available to you. Use it wisely and hopefully help yourself in your job search in a way that makes a big difference. So one-on-one coaching. George alluded to it. We always talk about it. Job search is a strenuous activity. It takes its toll on you mentally and physically. Sometimes we need a little extra help in job search and in job transition. So we have a job transition prayer support group and soul care team at Crossroads. And I highly recommend, if you're in need of a little extra oomph in your step and you believe in the power of prayer and need the power of prayer, check that out on the website and sign up. And we have a whole group of people that find praying for others to be their calling in life. And they really, really do enjoy and make an effort to make sure that what they do in the way of prayer has an impact on you. So check that out. Online classes. And one of the things that I will always talk about as the mainstay, the meat and potatoes, the brick and mortar of Crossroads is our online classes, the 8-week small group classes. And they're online right now. We have 1 to 2 monthly. You can check it out on the website. They're available to sign up. There's a time that they meet. They either meet like a Monday or Tuesday or a Thursday. They meet at a certain specific time. It's usually an hour and a half. And something you should sign up for if you're struggling with job search and you need a little extra help. These classes can make a big difference. Let me give you a couple of examples. There's 8 of them, obviously, the 8-week course, and they're all designed with a specific purpose. The first one is all about getting your attitude and getting straight and getting ready to do job search. And this is the one that I think is the most critical in a lot of ways, because it really sets the tone for you to be successful in job search. So one of the things that you can do, there's assessments in there, there's guidance, the leader of the group will help you through the process. That's the nice thing about the small group. There's a class that you can give feedback, and there's feedback going on, and you have a leader that's done this and has moved people through the process in a way that's been helpful and give them the guidance they need to be successful in their transition and get to the next job. We talk about networking. Again, here's another opportunity in the class. We learn about who to network with, how to network, what are the different things you can do in networking, why it's so important, how to really work on your asks. Asks are the most important thing. I mean, what do you specifically need through your networking endeavors? They're all covered in these classes. How to interview successfully, practice interviewing, all those things. Negotiating when you get your job offer. What should you negotiate? How should you negotiate? What's negotiate? What is negotiable? Those are things that are all covered in this class. So the small group classes are invaluable, and I highly recommend that you sign up for them especially if you're struggling. One thing that they do deliver is you usually meet friends in there that you can be accountable to and accountable with. And that really can make a difference too on the day-to-day struggles of job transition. So our small group classes are for you, I hope. So sign up, give it a try. It's all in the process of making a successful job transition. So again, classes are beginning each month. Crossroads has its own LinkedIn group. Of course we do. It's 𝙔𝙤𝙗 Crossroads Career Network. Type that in the search bar. It'll pop up. You can sign up there. And why would you want to do it? Well, there's at least 2,500 people on there who have gone through job search and are willing to help. So, what's more valuable in job search than people that have gone through it and have been successful and have gone on to great careers? That can be an inordinate help to you in your job search. We post a lot of good information there about what's the next seminars, what's the different things that are going on, what are the new things in job search. We'll post when we're going live, at different sites, again, on site. So again, a great resource to you in your job search. Check out 𝙔𝙗 Crossroads Career Network on LinkedIn. It's a LinkedIn group. It's our group, and you can sign up. I alluded to it earlier in the beginning of the start of the seminar, webinar, 𝙔𝙗 Crossroads Career Network YouTube channel. And that's where we post the presentations. There's an old presentation out there from George on four gears to a job transition. There's other great seminars out there, and there are a valuable group of people who volunteer and do the webinars, are experts in their field. They do a great job of presenting, and they have there's a lot of great information out there. And if you want to see George's presentation again that you just saw and get more information that you didn't write down, that'll be posted very soon, and you can do that. So check out our YouTube channel. I think you'll find it valuable. Additional resources. We are very fortunate here at Crossroads to have a great partner in 𝙔𝙤𝙗, and 𝙔𝙤𝙗 has supported us in ways that have made everything that we do possible. And now what they're doing is they have 3 regular monthly seminars on financial considerations during job transition. And, transition can be a burden on all of us, and especially financially. So this is one area where if you need a little guidance in this area, just check out one of these seminars. I think you'll find it valuable, and it can make a big difference in how you feel about finances in transition. So check that out. It's another resource we provide free of charge here at Crossroads, and I highly recommend you look at that. Crossroads isn't possible without our network of volunteers, and here's a cross-section of those people. And it's just a small cross-section of people who have helped us throughout the years, but these are some of the most valuable people that devote their time and energy each and every day to Crossroads. So it takes more than a village to help with these things, and these are the volunteers here at Crossroads. So you're looking for a church to meet on Sunday? in person or streaming online, here's woodburylutheran.org, northheights.church, and Grace Church. These are the three churches that represent our on-site Crossroads events. So you can check them out, and maybe you'll find a church home in the process. So visit one of those sites. That's our Crossroads presentation. So from that perspective, you'll find all the things on our website that I alluded to, and you can check those out and really find out what you need in your job search and your transition. Let me remind you that we have job classes starting every week, networking meetings on Thursday, one-on-one help, and the prayer service. I want to thank 𝙤𝙤𝙪𝙧 who is behind the scenes. George alluded to him many times. Like you, I didn't even introduce him up front, and I apologize for that. But Harry's making sure everything goes smoothly in the background. He's the one that played the video. He's the inspiration and the guidance here at Crossroads, and we couldn't do it without him. So thank you, Harry. Thanks to George Murray tonight. He and his dedication and help through his webinar. I hope it was very valuable to you all. And then special thanks to Tony Dunshee. I know he can't hear me, but yeah, his video was inspirational also. Next week, we have another seminar on 6/15 Thursday. It starts at 7:30 in the morning. It'll be Jeffrey Brown, Finding Your Purpose Through Transition. Jeffrey's a great speaker, and it would be if you have the time, I would recommend that you sign up for that one, because he'll help you in ways that are different than what George did tonight, and I think you'll find it valuable. So again, another great seminar here at Crossroads. I want to thank you all for attending tonight. We do appreciate you being here, and hopefully you found tonight's content valuable for you. I hope it was worthwhile. Best wishes on your job search. Hopefully you find something very soon that is your passion. And if you don't, come back very soon and keep working at it, because I know you'll be successful. And have a wonderful rest of your evening, and have a great tomorrow. Good night.